Thanks for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart of Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find them online at welcomehomefp.com. Made it real easy for you. You got the podcast open. Click a link on the description. It'll take you right there to the website. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined always by Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart. Gentlemen, glad to be with you. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Chris? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. You know, life, it happens. And sometimes when it happens, it's good, it's bad, but it's rarely inexpensive. And when that does happen and throws a curve at your retirement savings, you know, costly divorces, market dives, especially when retirement begins, right as retirement begins, you know, seeing that significant downturn, what do people do? There's an article on Morningstar that said one thing retirees can do when money runs short is something that's called a SPIA, or a single premium immediate annuity. Let's talk about what that actually means, and is this something that you guys would recommend?
Oh boy. So yeah,
not to unload there.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, we need to talk about what a single premium immediate annuity is. It is an insurance vehicle where you give an insurance company a lump sum of money. They now own that lump sum of money, and they give you a check every month, every year, whatever the mode may be that you've set up for either a certain period of time or over your life. One thing I've talked a lot about on these podcasts, on television, at our First Friday event, whenever I get to speak publicly, I talk about letting my clients have control, as much control as they can possibly have. Mm-hmm. SPIAs, single premium immediate annuities, automatically clientele are giving up control of a large portion of their money. I am not a fan. I call them the last resort. Now, I mean, I'm not going to tell you they're horrible, because they do exactly what they tell you they're going to do. They will give you a paycheck for life for a certain period of time, but it's not something that I'm going to highly encourage clientele to do. I want to exhaust every other option. And in the annuity market in general, as annuities have evolved, we can now get clients into a similar type of product where they have significantly more control of the money. Should one of life's unexpected bumps come along, they can withdraw a lump sum, or they can take a little bit more one year to take a little bit less the next year. There's a lot of options out there that should be explored before a client locks themselves into a single premium annuity structure.
So what I'm going to say to anybody that's listening is annuities is not as bad as everybody might be led down that road, because they do not know what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And here's what I'm going to say to you. There are good annuities. There's bad annuities. There are annuities that will not get to the point where you're trying to get. I'm going to give you this example. I had a client that came to me that she was fixing to retire, and she just had that bump in the road. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and she knew that she was going to have to go into a nursing home. So what she wanted it to do, was there a way that she could invest her money and make sure that the nursing home would have that amount of money that she was going to need, which is around $6,000 a month. And this was about 15 years ago. So that kind of dates where we are. So we kind of structured a few things based on what she was wanting to do. We kind of did a split annuity situation with the single premium immediate annuity to give her that amount of money for the 7 years that she wanted. And then she did not have to worry about that $7,000, $8,000 a month, that the payment to the nursing home. That was going to be provided. We did it I think it was on a 10-year structure, so that she was going to get that amount of money for 10 years and didn't have to worry at all about it. If she did not make it those 10 years, then the beneficiaries would get the remainder of whatever those payments were. Mm-hmm. So guess what? In year 7, she did pass away. Her beneficiary still got the remainder of those 10-year payments, and they still had the remainder of her investment dollars that we didn't use. So my point in all this is annuities are good if you understand what you need them to do for you. That is the key point to no matter what investment you have. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Always understand what is your end goal. then you find a fiduciary that gets you to that point where it can guide you that roadmap to do the things that you want to do. And annuities can work, but you have to have the end goal in mind. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. And the biggest thing with the SPIAs is that they do provide guaranteed income. But if somebody, they have two pensions like your father and Social Security, they probably don't need any more income. So then why put your money, like Scott says, lose the control of that? So there's other annuities out there that, we talk about a lot. But the important thing to know is that they all work a little bit different. So some work for people, some don't. And it depends on which particular one that you need for your goals, right? So, Chris, if you came to me and said, hey, I've got money I want to invest into an investment, I would look at you and be like, well, what investment are we speaking of here? So it's just like anybody coming to you and saying, well, tell me about annuities. Well, how much time you got?
Yeah.
Because there's different types and there's different goals for each one of them. That's important to realize.
Definitely. And, you guys, we mentioned so often here on the show, you guys are fiduciaries, meaning acting in the client's best interest. And there are some people out there who say that they operate in a fiduciary capacity. That is the phrase that they use, not necessarily saying they are fiduciaries, but in the same breath, they'll say, and I hate annuities. I refuse to use annuities at all. I don't see how that is possible, how you can say that you're going to act in the client's best interest if you're going to immediately rule out a vehicle that could potentially work. And Scott, you said there, you're not a big fan of these SPIAs, but you said there is a time and place. We say so often here about controlling what you can control. You do give up that control. But if it works at the end of the day, you're not going to, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you're not going to refuse to utilize that for someone if you guys come to the conclusion that is what is going to work best for them. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've written SPIAs before, and there is a time and a place for them. There's a time and a place for every type of investment that's available in America. The whole financial investment pie, there's little slivers for everybody. Mm-hmm. But again, for just the way that most of my clients interact with me, they want more control than what they would get in a SPIA. So what I say to them is, give me a call. If this is what you think you need, we're going to sit down. We're going to look at every other single option to give you as much control as possible. And if it, at the end of the day, comes down that the SPIA is right for them, then that's what we're going to do. It's got to be about what's right for you, the situation you're in, and not just the situation you're in today, but where do we think that's going to put you in 5 years, 10 years throughout your retirement. That's what we need to plan for.
And it's important to note too, that everybody's got an opinion, right? The three of us sitting here and you, Chris, we're all going to differ in opinion, but it's not about us. It's about the client.
Mm-hmm. But what I would say too, is if it was one perfect investment, that's all we would be talking about. There is no such thing as one perfect investment. If it was, we'd be sitting there either all in gold, all in Bitcoin, all in mutual funds. But no, it all depends on what that individual's trying to accomplish. And there is no such thing as a perfect investment.
What is going to work best for you at the end of the day is what is most important. And so sitting down and figuring that out, maybe it is utilizing an annuity. Maybe it is, utilizing X, Y, or Z. You don't know until you sit down and you speak with financial professionals who, again, I want to reiterate, are fiduciaries acting in your client's best interest. If you don't know where to turn, well, it's real easy. You're listening to the podcast. Click a link there, right there in the description. It'll take you to welcomehomefp.com. Ralph, Tim, and Scott, they are fiduciaries acting in the client's best interest. They'll entertain the options. They will educate you, inform you, and at the end of the day, let you make the decision based on what you think, on the information that they present with you. It all starts with reaching out. Again, welcomehomefp.com. That is the website. Let's before we wrap up here, let's have a little bit of fun. I think it's fun anyway. An American Airlines pilot recently had enough with all the unruly behavior by passengers, so he laid down some ground rules during his opening remarks. Get a listen to this.
Do your stuff. Get it out everybody else's way. Put your junk where it belongs. Don't lean on other people. Don't fall asleep on other people. Don't pass out on other people or drool on them unless you've talked about it. Listening to videos on speaker mode and talking on a cell phone on speaker mode, that is over. Nobody wants to hear your video. I know you think it's super sweet. It probably is. But it's your business, right? So keep it to yourself.
I just want to go on the record and say I love this guy. The pilot, he obviously has expectations on how passengers should act. in retirement planning, I have to imagine clients have certain expectations of their financial advisor. When people come to the table, for the first time with you, how does that conversation go?
I like having that conversation, Chris, but I want to jump in. I love the pilot, but he needs to say, don't stand up as soon as the plane docks.
Okay, yes.
My biggest pet peeve on a plane is everybody stands up and jams the aisle. Just wait your turn.
And hits their head on the overhead.
I don't have that problem because I'm all 5 foot. Yeah. So, but the expectation conversation from a client to a financial professional is very important. I mean, I want to have that conversation. I encourage that conversation. I want to know what a client expects from their financial professional, and I want to tell a client what they can expect from me. I mean, let's be real here. The three of us sitting at this table, we're not the right financial professional for everyone. Mm-hmm. If you have expectations that you are that don't align with how we operate our firm, we're not right for you. And every client is not right for us. For the clients that are, or potential clients that are out there listening, for potential retirees, potential investors, whatever you may be, you have to talk to a financial professional and make sure that you are a good fit. You are a good match. You can enjoy working with that person. If you don't like working with me, it's going to be a long, long road if you can't enjoy being around me or listening to my advice. Like I tell all of my clients before we sign any type of paperwork or do anything, having me as your financial professional is kind of like being married. We're here for the long haul. We want to make this work. I don't want to get divorced after a year because that doesn't do any good for anybody. So I'd say that the client expectations, don't be afraid to bring up what you expect and figure out if the person you're talking to is right for you and they can help you achieve your goals.
It's a very scary thought for most people when they come in to meet a financial advisor for the first time because they've never done it before. Sure. They didn't know what to expect. I had a client that came in that was scared to death because she didn't get any sleep the night before. So I just said, what are you scared of? She said, I've never done this before. I said, well, all we're going to do is sit down here and have a talk on the first meeting and more or less say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish because this is what you want, not what I want. We're not pushing a product. We're trying to achieve your goals. And that's exactly what we do on our first meeting.
Yeah, and it's important to note that there's a lot of people who've never worked with a financial professional before, so they don't really know what to expect, right? Their financial planning experience is, hey, I'm contributing to my 401k, right? And that's good for accumulation. But when it comes to the point of, hey, it's time to turn the keys over, I'm in a different phase of life, a lot of folks don't have any kind of expectation. And that's why we like to kind of guide them through what that looks like, because there's some people who want, a monthly review. There are people who's like, hey, I don't want to look at your ugly face anymore. Hey, let's sign this and let's move forward. But it's very important to get to know that person. I think that's where a lot of advisors fall short, especially at the big box firms, is the fact that you're talking to them either via Zoom or by phone. And I'm sorry, but you don't get to know that person unless you're sitting across the table and you have those conversations. So that's very important to know.
And I think that's why we do a lot of what we do. That's why we do these podcasts. That's why we do so much television. We have our client events. We have our First Friday events. Everything that we do is so the clients can know who we are, not only as their financial professionals, but as people as well, and so that they can trust us.
Yeah, and it's important to know too that we do so many events around town. So some of them are fun. So you get to know us more on a personal level, not just inside the office.
So one of the things I would say is each client is a little bit individual. Had a gentleman yesterday that came in and we were talking. We've talked for a few times before, but his main goal, once we got through several minutes of conversation, was he had accumulated, based on what he had done over his lifetime, $7 million. Wow. But he wanted an answer to a question that his wife had. And his wife said, you've done such a good job, and I know I'm worried about all this. And he said, why? You don't have to worry about it. You've got enough money for 100 years that we'll never spend. They were going into the nursing home. So that was a concern of hers. But her concern was, if you're no longer here, what do I do? You're the one that's done all this all these years. Who do I turn to? And he said, that's why I'm here, because I didn't have a good answer for her. That's why I'm meeting with you, to interview you, to make sure we align our goals with her goals. I want her to be taken care of for the rest of her life, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's not everybody that we run into, but every individual is different.
Yeah, and it's important to know who your beneficiaries are going to be and have the introduction, whether it's at an event or just bring them into the office, so then they put a face to the name. So if something were to happen, you don't necessarily, well, who do I call? Oh, I got to call Tim, or I got to call Scott, or I got to call Ralph, because they're working with mom, dad, or spouse, or whatever it is. Because most people, when they're in a marriage, one person is taking control of the investments, right? So if that person leaves for whatever reason, whether it's death or divorce, then what happens?
It's a great question. I remember when I was younger, my parents were having a guest, or having friends over. It was a dinner party. And my dad made the joke, I remember very distinctly. He said, I make the money, and my wife, and she knows where, my mom, she knows where all the money is. And everybody laughed, and I didn't know. I was 10. I didn't know what that meant. That is horrifying. That is horrifying to not know, both sides of it, to not know, because if there is uncertainty, if there is the loss of a loved one, and then you don't know where to turn to afterwards. You guys hit it on the head. You said this is kind of like a marriage. It is a long-term relationship. We're talking, working with them for the next 10, 20, 30 years, however long their retirement's going to be. So you want to make sure that you guys gel, that you guys align. You don't want to start something off that you're hating from day one or disliking from day one, because every time the phone rings, even if they have great information for you, great news for you, you're going to go, oh, I don't want that. So that is, I think, why it is important to know who you're working with, and having those conversations, having those expectations. Talking about finances sometimes is kind of, it's taboo. So do you find that sometimes people come in and they may be hesitant to ask the questions that, quite frankly, they should be asking about you guys?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that come in and don't really know what to ask or what to do or what the process is going to look like. So it's important to get to know them. As soon as you get people comfortable, it's a lot easier to open up. And I think that's what, really our main purpose for the first meeting is, hey, let's get to know each other. Tell me about, what your experience has been, what you're looking to accomplish, family. So there's a lot to do with getting folks comfortable, and that's what we like to do. But we want it to be a good marriage, right? Mm-hmm. Let's be honest. There's not always marriages that are great. So we want this to be a long-lasting, good relationship.
I met with a small business owner earlier this week, and he's turning 60, starting to think about retirement. And he'd never worked with a financial planner, but he comes in and he's got a folder that's, I don't know, a telephone book thick. Mm-mm. And he sits down and he throws it at me. And he just goes, what are we going to do with this? And I put it right back to him. And I said, sir, I don't know what's in that folder, and I don't want to know. Not yet, because I haven't earned the right to look at it. We need to get to know you. You need to get to know me before anything, because just those numbers, I could tell you what I think we do with those numbers, but I'm shooting blind because that's what I think. It's not about what I think. It's about what you think, what you want, and if I'm the right guy to help you achieve those goals.
So I want to make sure I'm hearing this right. The first appointment when people come in, it is going back to the marriage. It is kind of like a first date. It is a getting to know you thing rather than, all right, let's sit down, let's get to brass tacks, let's talk numbers, and here's the plan. That is, am I right? Is that something that happens during the first appointment, or?
You're absolutely right, but I think all three of us will make a commitment when we walk you to the door. We're not going to try and kiss you.
Okay, that's fair.
And also, too, back to the pilot, is we're not going to drool on you unless we talked about it before. I've been holding that one in, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It is good. You want to make sure you go and get that out there. So if just by listening, you're showing you're taking your retirement seriously. If you need second opinion, or you don't have a financial professional right now to help you with retirement, and you want to see, if the team at, Welcome Home Financial Partners can be a right fit for you, just reach out. Click the link right there in the podcast description. It'll take you to welcomehomefp.com. Find out more about them there. Listen to, additional episodes if you want to get a better feel for them, or schedule a time to speak with them. Reach out and then see where this relationship goes from there. Again, always available online day and night at welcomehomefp.com. And before we wrap up here, just to reiterate, please, when the plane lands, do not stand up right away. Wait. And,
Thank you, Chris.
Take your time. I wanted to make sure we didn't gloss over that because I feel like that is critical. But thank you guys for joining us here on Aspire to Retire. with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Stay safe out there. Gentlemen, always grateful for the time. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate it. So we do believe that it's very important to have a good relationship with your financial planner, advisor, whatever you want to call them. So if you feel like you're mistreated or you feel like they don't have your best interests at heart, feel free to reach out to us, and we appreciate you listening.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.